Welcome back. You're still watching Daybreak on this 20th day of September 2021. We are with Governor Wycliffe Wangamati of Bungoma, Honorable Maoka Maore from Wigembe North, but also Deputy Majority Whip at the National Assembly, Senator Ledamo Lekina from Narok, and Degwa Wahome, the Speaker of Nyandarua County, but also the Chairperson of the County Assemblies Forum. And we are talking about the proposed law that is seeking to provide for retirement benefits for state officers at the county level. We are talking about governors, deputy governors, speakers, and members of the county assemblies, or MCAs. I just want to quickly look at the Presidential Retirement Benefits Act of 2013 that provides what a retired president should get. First is that they get a lump sum payment on retirement calculated as a sum equal to 1 year's salary for each term served. So if it's the President Uhuru Kenyatta, that is for the 2 terms. A monthly pension equal to 80% of the monthly salary currently paid to the President, or that salary will be paid for the rest of his life. An entertainment allowance equal to 15% of the monthly salary currently paid to the serving president. So that can keep changing depending on the benefits, how they change in the coming years. A housing allowance equal to 23% of the monthly salary currently paid to the serving president. A suitable office space not exceeding 1,000 square meters with appropriate furniture, furnishings, and other machines. Then there's something else that a retired president gets: 2 new cars of the retired president's choice, replaceable every 3 years, and each car having an engine capacity not exceeding 3,000 cc. 2 4-wheel drive motor vehicles, this is something more, of the retired president's choice, replaceable every 3 months. A fuel allowance equal to 15% of the monthly salary currently paid to the serving president. Something else that a retired president gets is an allowance equal to 23% of the monthly salary currently paid to the serving president for electricity, water, and telephone facilities. Full medical and hospital cover, providing for local and overseas treatment, and the additional benefits set out in the schedule, which I'm quickly going to look at because it also talks about, let me just get it. The additional benefits are that a retired president will get 2 personal assistants, 4 secretaries, 4 messengers, 4 drivers, 2 cooks, 4 cooks, no, there's a mistake there, between 2 and 4, 2 housekeepers, 4 housekeepers, well, gardeners, laundry persons, house cleaners, office maintenance and running expenses of the vehicles that, of course, he is using. And if you look at the legislation that talks about the office of the Deputy President and the speakers of the National Assembly, it is similar, but slightly reduced. And that, the governor of Bungoma says, is the basis of coming up with that benefit scheme, or rather a retirement benefits program for the governors. And Speaker, you had not responded once the county assemblies enact this into law. So now the counties are free to implement it?
Yes, our position is that this is not a uniform law that we are making. It is uniform for the reason that it will be the same across the 47 counties. And therefore, it is not a national registration per se, encompassing all the 47 county registrations, but under the Intergovernmental Relations Act, in terms of cooperation and coordination, we have agreed as the 47 county governments to cooperate and coordinate our issues as pertains to pension and come up with a law that is uniform across all the counties, because the kind of gratuity we get it uniformly across the 47 county assemblies. An MCA here and an MCA in Mombasa will get the same gratuity, just like the governor and the deputy governor. And therefore, it is from that approach. So there is no competition at all between us and the National Parliament and the National Senate. It is that we are doing because we have an obligation for social protection. And as I've said, this, we are not reinventing the wheel. It is happening in the national government, from the president, deputy president, the speaker of the National Assembly, and the MPs. And also, it is happening in the judiciary. It is also happening among the cabinet secretaries and the permanent secretaries. And I don't know why it would raise a lot of issues when it comes to the county governments, when actually we are entitled to social protection. Okay. I don't want
Speaker, just hold on. There's no problem. We are just talking about the procedure here, because look, according to the current terms, if our calculations are correct, a retiring governor, or the gratuity for a governor for one term would be, the total for the 47 governors would be 485 million shillings. If we are to go through the proposed bill way, it would rise to 521 million shillings. Then, if they are to receive pension for the rest of their lives, then that would occasion a total of 417 million shillings every year for retired governors, if all the 47 governors are to retire. But if you talk about the current crop of leaders, with based on 47 governors, 47 deputy governors, and 47 speakers, then the cost per year to maintain those retired officials would be 715 million shillings. Is it a fair expenditure on the side of the taxpayer without necessarily following the legislative process at the National Assembly or at Parliament?
So what we are saying is that, as I've said, the Parliament for us has already done its part. What is left is for us. And another thing I would want to say here is that democracy, Sam and my panelists, democracy is not cheap. And this constitution knows that there are 47 governors in this country. There are 47 deputy governors and speakers and 2,287 MCAs. And these are people who are state officers who require social protection. You know, when it comes to the county governments, the issue that comes in is about the numbers. But numbers is not about individual rights, fundamental rights. We are talking what are the rights, fundamental rights of a state officer at the county. Don't look at the numbers. Don't look at the huge figures because it is 47 governors. And at the top here, you are looking at one president. You are looking at one deputy president, you are looking at 47 deputy governors. The issue is that there must be social protection for each state officer who has served this country. Some we are talking about now, at Senate or Kenya, they are now trying to find mechanisms to be able to find social protection for councillors who retired as early as in the 1990s, because now they are vulnerable, they are exposed. We are saying that we should not repeat the same mistake, and that for me, and we have consulted widely, is that we are on the right track, and definitely, there is no, even after the mention of Article 191 of the Constitution, there is no breach. Against Article 191 of the Constitution.
I think we are...
Just hold on. Let me take it to the Governor. Governor, I want us to close on this topic.
But without misleading the public.
We need to respond. Can we
closed it? I'm just saying. and Governor, if you look at the cost implication, if you were to retire after next year's election, do you think it's a fair burden for the people of Bungoma that every other month they'll have to pay you 724,000 shillings without being a contributory scheme and without you necessarily having any real contribution to the county of Bungoma at that time when you retired?
Sam, I think let me try to address this issue of cost. I think the numbers were very clear from the table that he showed, that currently that provides for gratuity for speakers and MCAs and the CECs. That scheme, if today these governors get the full term, the cost of the gratuity scheme will be about 4.5 billion shillings. The one-off lump sum that we have introduced in the bill is about 4.8 billion. So that's an addition of about 300 million shillings.
Right.
The main cost that we are discussing here is about the monthly pension of about, for all the counties, of about 715 million or 750 million shillings per year. I think that is the main additional cost that we are discussing. Now, the way you have done your numbers, you have not also looked at, because that bill allows for graduated scale. A second-term governor will receive about 80% of his salary. A first-term governor, if he retires, will receive about, I think, 50%. And I think your numbers, you have assumed that everyone will receive about 80%. The speakers will also receive about 60%. I think second-term governors, second-term speakers, and I think first-term speakers about 50%. So when you look at the numbers, It is not 750 the way you have computed. I think it's much lower. Secondly, that pension will be taxed. It's not the whole of it doesn't go, that's gross of tax, but it will be taxed. So what actually is paid to the governor or deputy governor or whatever it is much less. Thirdly, I think the issue of whether it is reasonable or not, I think it's important that we look at what is happening in the country and what is happening across the world. It's not just about Kenya. Devolved system is not just about in this country. It is across the world. I think it's also important that we see what is happening in other countries. And it's not just about the president. It is the president, it's the deputy president at a national level, it's the speaker, it is the judges at a national level who are also enjoying this defined benefit scheme. So it's important that we look at what is happening across the world. Now, in terms of whether it makes sense, yes, it makes sense. Because you see, if we want governors to be committed to their work, if we want governors to understand and just focus on their work, somebody should not worry what will happen to him after he has retired.
But Governor, that's why you seek to be elected and you swear to defend the Constitution and do your job. Why do you have to be assured that after you're done with your term, you'll be safe, you'll have some money?
But does that not happen to the president, the deputy president, the judge? What you're saying, Sam, does it not happen to the president and the judge?
Not,
is a governor different from a judge?
my question is about your reason.
At the end of the day,
just hold on, Governor. Governor, just hold on. Just hold on. Allow me to ask you this. The question is about what your reason is, because you're saying that a governor needs to implement or to do their job without wondering what will happen to them after the term. But you've been elected. That's already a good reward. And you're doing a job because you want to render services to the people.
But Sam, what am I saying? What I'm also saying is this, Sam. I mean, with a lot of humility, and the president is already elected. The deputy president is elected. The speaker of the National Assembly is also elected by members of parliament. Are they not elected? What is so different from that point of view?
No,
and I think it's important.
I think we are losing focus.
Sorry, Governor Honorable Maore wants to say something here.
No, I think very quickly what we are actually missing out is actually the sheer numbers involved here. We are talking over 2,000 state officers in the county assemblies. Also the governors, 47 of them, the deputies, 47, speakers, 47. Now, when you talk of one, whether it is one speaker in the National Assembly or one speaker in the Senate or one president or one deputy president, that's a different story. The volume involved is mind-boggling. Two, I remember when I came to Parliament in January 93, myself, my salary was 23,000. Now, over the years, there has been this craving that if you increase the salary, you will have people who are not tainted or who will not be tempted to do corruption. It has reached nearly 1 million, but you can imagine the level of corruption. It is worse than when it was 23,000, because that time we were actually motivated by the desire for public service. Right. So this idea that if you just give more money, you are people working and not tempted to corruption is not true also.
Okay.
Can I just?
I think Sam, let me
yes, Governor.
Let me just tell Mheshimiwa Maore that the numbers, I think first and foremost, we have in excess of 2,000 MCAs, but those are clearly on a defined contribution scheme where they contribute and their employers contribute. So the numbers is talking about the 2,000 for MCAs that are not part of the defined contribution scheme.
Right.
I mean, the defined scheme. Those ones are contributory and we have no problem with that. I think what we are focusing on is the speakers and deputy governors and governors. So I think it's important that I make that very clear.
Maybe for governors also it should have been contributory. What do you think?
Sorry?
Maybe even for governors it should have been contributory, a contributory scheme where you also chip in while you're working.
I think governors, if they want to have their contributory scheme as an individual, yes, they can do that. But I think what we are trying to do is just to say, look, what is the best way of providing a retirement benefit scheme for this category of state officers? I think that is what we are trying to do, sir.
All right, and there's something you alluded to that we have assumed a few things. I just want to say that those figures are calculated on the assumption that At one particular time, you have 47 retired governors. Of course, we know that in 21 counties, there are second-term governors who obviously have to retire based on the constitution. You say that if you have served for less than a term, then you're entitled to 50%, not 80%. That's correct. But I have just given you the basis of the calculation. Senator Ledama, your final word.
Let me just finalize by saying this. This is free advice to my colleague, the lawyer, and to all governors and the County Assembly Forum. I don't really have beef with the numbers, you know, because everyone has a right to be able to fight for their welfare. You know, I have no problem with that. My free advice is that the process you're taking is ill-advised. It is wrong. You need to be able to go back and stop being overzealous, excited about what you could be able to get or the powers that you have. Go back, sit with SRC, and then from there, start talking to your members of the members of parliament. In fact, if the governors are honest enough, they have to remember that when we are fighting for the revenue formula, it doesn't matter how much their Council of Governors had to say. It boiled down to us, the senators, who had the mandate to be able to divide that shareable revenue equitably. So my advice to them is this: the Constitution, Article 230, is very clear. The mandate is vested and domiciled in only one body, SRC. Go talk to SRC. They have the mandate to review state officers. First of all, start by defining who you are. Are you a state officer? Yes. If you say you're not a state officer, then whatever law you make will not be applicable in this Republic of Kenya. Number two, SRC ensure they are mandated by the Constitution to ensure that any advisor they give, it is something which is physically sustainable. Is this going to be sustainable for this economy? You know, sometimes we rush. It's just like recently, the Cabinet Secretary of Treasury was running around saying that he wants to set up a sinking fund. Yet, we do not have money to send to those counties first to be able to pay their bills. We send the money to counties. The money to counties was sent just the other day. The Speaker can be able to attest to that. So instead of you wasting time, you know, you are the 11th hour, try and talk to these two bodies. And yes, the Senate was pushing to be able to assist the retired councillors. The retired councillors went to the right body, to the Senate, for them to be able to talk to them. The amount of time you spending taxpayers' money, meeting, discussing on this welfare package for you, right, you'll be wasting it. So my simple 2 cents is that it is ill-advised, the wrong footing. Come to the National Parliament and SRC, and we will be able to help you.
All right. And of course, we reached out to the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, and they gave us some guidelines that are to be followed by the state officers at the county level as they talk about these benefits, and they said that you can only be entitled to either pension or gratuity. So once you have a defined contribution scheme like what CAF is proposing for MCAs, then they cannot go ahead and benefit from the gratuity. And so there are certain guidelines, but as far as that monthly pension, the SRC is yet to comment on. And I want us now to make transition, because we are talking about the devolution process or a system that has been in force since about 2013. It's about 8 going to 9 years. Next year in August, there will be an election. There could be some transitions. Like I told you, 21 governors are serving their second term, meaning that in 26 counties, there were actually 25 counties, because one of them died. In 25 counties, there was change of hands in terms of the management of the county. There could be similar changes come next year, but for sure, in 21 counties, there'll be new governors. And Governor Wangamati, let me begin with you, because recently we spoke to the governor of Kirinyaga, Anne Waiguru, who told us that the first governor of that county, Joseph Ndadi, didn't leave any sort of blueprint on the development trajectory for the county. How are you planning a transition, whether you return as a second-term governor or someone succeeds you? How are you planning to ensure that there will be sustainable line of development in that regional running of affairs?
Thank you very much, Sam. I think first and foremost, is to appreciate that, yes, we are coming up for elections next year on the 8th of August. And as you rightly mentioned, a number of governors are retiring. We're going to have new governors coming in after the second-term governors. Of course, for us who are seeking re-election, of course, we hope that most of us will come back. But I think where we are now, I think devolution has moved on. I think we are likely to see a better transition rate in these coming elections. Like, for example, I can tell you, Sam, that when I took over the leadership of this county in Bungoma, most of the projects that were pending at the time I took over the leadership, we have tried to finish them. We have tried to deal with them. We have tried to ensure that the taxpayers' money is not wasted. I'll expect going forward that if today I'm not re-elected as a governor of Bungoma from the 8th of August 2022, that will also happen going forward. Thirdly, of course, we have a number of projects that are going on in the county of Bungoma, flagship projects, which are very, they stand out, and I think it will be very difficult for any new governor coming in not to sort of finalize that. But we want also, as a government, to try and finalize some of these projects before the coming elections, so that, you know, we don't have many projects that, you know, will be there after the 8th of August 2022.
Right, and Speaker Wahome, we're talking about a situation because so far more than 2 trillion shillings has been sent to the counties since coming to force of this system. But then when you look at the control of budget reports, there are always these challenges of implementation of the budget itself, but also certain challenges in collection of revenue. To date, counties still struggling to have sufficient revenue, whether it's because of collection or it's because of late release from the exchequer. How do you see the third term of devolution as we transition to that? How do you see, what do you think needs to be done, knowing all these challenges that are coming at a time that the economy is not doing so well?
I think we have had a very problematic area in terms of releases to the county government. And you'll find that in some instant that the treasury releases are happening just a few days before the close of the year. And therefore you don't expect that those monies can be absorbed. But again, you'll also find that most of the counties, I don't know whether they have any matrix on how they want to implement their budgets, because it has been a very, very big issue, where you find that most of the county governments, they start implementing their budgets as late as February. And in the case of like Nyandarua, I can tell you that in the last about 3 years, and that has been the cause of a lot of friction between the assembly and the executive, is that our budget has always been implemented effective April. And we have been returning almost 50% of the development fund or development money to the treasury or to the county treasury. And that has been a very big issue. And actually when we were campaigning for the BBI, I was asking if this retro that we have is not actually being absorbed despite the problems within the counties. What about if this extra 4 billion comes to Nyandarua? What will happen? Unless definitely there is some change of leadership. So it is a very big problem. You don't understand what would be the problem, what would be the challenge, because the budget is passed. It's a program-based budget where it is known where the money should go to. There are procurement programs where the law is very clear that every chief officer should be in charge of the procurement from their departments. But you will find in most of the counties, and the governor is here, the governors will want to concentrate the procurement within the finance department, one department, despite the law being very clear that it should be decentralized. So therefore it becomes very difficult for the finance department to be able to do all the procurements for the counties. And that is a very serious bottleneck. And that tells you it's about interests. That is why. And maybe finally, Sam, is on the local revenue collections. Because I don't think there is any county that is even hitting 50% of the expected local revenues. And now when you see the governors crying, sometimes you ask yourself, why are you so much into the monies coming from the national government when there is a lot of money, a lot of potential coming
because
within your county?
What is the biggest challenge to?
Like in Nyandarua now today, we have never collected even a cent in terms of Alcoholic Drinks Control Act.
Why?
From 2017, for no reason, there will be talk that money is being collected by persons, individual persons, but there is no single cent in Nyandarua that has ever gone to the county revenue
and knowing
fund.
that, Speaker, knowing that you know this, and the legislative arm of the county governments is supposed now to oversight the implementation of programs or execution of their duties, have you taken any action?
Yes, we have taken actions. Actually, we have shouted about this all over. And that is the reason why the Speaker cannot even access the Assembly.
What action?
That is why we have complained. Actually, I have even written, and I would want Mheshimiwa Maoka Maore to ask the Secretary General of Jubilee Party. I have written to the Jubilee Party about non-implementation of programs, non-collection of local revenue, about the corruption in Nyandarua.
Speaker,
and instead...
Just hold on. What I'm asking about is,
Yes.
because look, the structure of government at the counties is that you have the executive,
Yes.
and you have the legislative arm in the name of the county assembly. So I don't see where the political party would come in, but maybe there is. But what have you done administratively and structurally to ensure that the work of the executive in all the failures you're highlighting is put to question through the provided structures?
Now, you know, we are talking as if Nyandarua is operating like any other democracy within this country. Nyandarua, I told you, is an IRAD. The Speaker does not go to that assembly. The MCAs who dare asking a question in Nyandarua, they have been suspended from the county assembly. I have told you, MCAs, 10 of them cannot go to the assembly since February. They have been locked out
Speaker of the House.
by the Jubilee Party, suspending an elected member from the assembly. I had to go to the Court of Appeal to the High Court on appeal to have the MCAs being allowed to go back to the assembly. And even today, they cannot go to that assembly.
Okay.
They are only given links. So I'm saying, like in Nyandarua and Mheshimiwa Rekina, I have written to Senate more than 10 times to intervene in Nyandarua.
All right. And
So therefore, Sam,
Just
is
hold on.
that we cannot talk about issues, implementation of the Constitution, when the basics, like a speaker going to the assembly, like an MCA going to the
that's
assembly,
fine.
are not even
Speaker, you
allowed
said
to do
that
their work.
quite eloquently. I'll get to you,
Yes.
Senator Olekina, but first, Honorable Maore, I mean, these are real challenges, whether they are political or structural or even financial, because several reports of the control of budget have said that majority of the counties are not even able to raise 50% of the revenues they have set out to collect. Yet you have an economy that is becoming so unbearable for many. The national budget is becoming more and more expensive. The country is piling up more and more debt, meaning it will become more difficult for even the national executive to send money to the counties. What do you think needs to be done to deal with these bottlenecks, but also raise the revenues as we get into the next election?
I think first way of raising the revenues is proper utilization, even or the little they have. And for those who don't collect adequately, as stipulated in law, they should strive to make sure they are able to collect. Secondly, there is likely to be challenges and the shortfalls at the national treasury. Now, when the revenues get late, it becomes a challenge. And even when it is not late, the one that gets to that ground is actually not properly utilized. Because I think after 10 years of this devolution, these arid, some arid counties, they have received money, actually nearly 2 trillion. Mm-hmm. And instead of even going to do boreholes for the cattle and for the other animals, you have conflicts for pasture. 10 years after devolution, when a lot of money has been going into these counties, they have not been utilizing the revenues that they collect. They have not been using the allocations they get from the treasury. And that is a big challenge. Nobody wants to debate that.
Okay, and Senator Olekina, look, these challenges are not new, like the situation that Speaker is explaining here, but of course the governor is not here to tell his side of the story. But there has been that difficulty between the executive and the assemblies, and you have seen it yourselves. So having been at the Senate for the past, is it 4 years now, going to the 5th, what would be your proposals to get over these challenges into the next term?
First of all, there is a question that you asked about having a smooth transition. You quoted Governor Waiguru saying that the former governor did not leave a blueprint. The Senate developed the Assumption of Office of Governors Act 2019, which stipulates clearly the procedures to be followed when we are transitioning from one governor to another. It sets up a committee. That committee entails the county secretary, it entails the NSIS, it entails the national government aspect, the minister, and all those people to be able to set that smooth transition. So I think my advice to the governors is that look at that act, start looking at setting up that committee, you know, work with that committee so that it is easy to transition from one governor to another. That is issue number one.
Her point was that it was not existent, so they had to draft their own.
No, but now, now we have the Assumption of Office Act, which is 2019. So they need to now start working on it. Okay. That's issue number one. Number two, when you talk about own source revenue, truth be told, there have been a lot of challenges. And some of the things some of my beef that I had with the BBI, although I supported it eventually, because the public had to be able to make the decision, was that we were not looking at Article 209 of the Constitution, where we wanted to, my advice was let's broaden the tax collection mechanism for county governments. Because currently the Constitution only gives the county government the right to collect, the power to collect the property rates, entertainment rates, and any other tax it is authorized by any other act of parliament. But right now, it's actually very minimal to the two. Now, the biggest problem that we've seen with county government is that a lot of these county governments have not really been playing their role in finalizing their assets and liability register for them to be able to know what is it that they own. Number two, they've also not worked on their valuation role. It is now that some of them are getting to that level. We had a lot of problems with the first transitioning authority, then we came into the ITGRC. So I think now moving into the third term, or rather the third phase of devolution, there's a lot that can be able to change. We have a big problem with the PFM Act, because the PFM Act only mandates one county treasurer. The Speaker is right in complaining, because although the Senate worked tirelessly to be able to make the county assemblies or semi-autonomous, they still rely on the executive for them to be able to get their money. So I think, my colleague Maoka, what we may need to do to be able to help devolution is first of all to look at the role of the county assemblies. If you look at even the Auditor General report, during the first year of devolution, it was a county government. But slowly by slowly, when the county assemblies, I believe it was July of 2015, became semi-autonomous, that they have their money now, they can be able to account for that money, is when the Auditor General started producing two Auditor General reports, one for the county assembly and one for the executive. So what we may need to do is to find out a mechanism where, and this relates, we have to look at the Constitution and ask ourselves whether we can amend that provision of the Constitution without calling for a referendum. And I believe it can be done so under Article 256, where we now give the county assembly autonomous so that they can be able to get their money directly from the exchequer. Right now, what is happening in Nairobi County, and I've said this, and I'll continue saying this because the truth has got no shades of gray. Money going directly to NMS is illegal. It is completely illegal because the law does not allow that. The money has to go to the county executive or the county government, and then from the county government, any transferred function can be funded directly from the county government. So in terms of raising revenue, county government must complete the evaluation role. County government must look at all the properties that they have in their counties. They must come up with a spatial plan which define every single street. And any serious governor must be able to sit in his office and say, this is my spatial plan. In this building, using technology, in this building, I've got 50 businesses. That is, I will collect the business permits from there. I can also be able to collect the property rates. But until we do that, the county government will continue relying on the shareable revenue, a share of the shareable revenue, which is not consistent, because even though we in the Senate, and even though the Constitution is quite clear that that money, a share of county revenue must be sent to the county without undue delay, it will still be delayed because there's no money in the government.
All right.
So the county assemblies, the county government and the county assemblies must play a role in ensuring that they look at what is available to them.
Right.
They realign those existing resources, because that is the only way, that is the only time that they can be able to overcome this challenge of not being able to raise on-source revenue.
And Governor, of course, in the current financial year, the county governments have been allocated 370 billion shillings in terms of the shareable revenue from the national government or from the national coffers. But there are these challenges that we keep hearing, delays in exchequer releases. Maybe you can start by telling us the last time you received your share, or how you're doing on that side. But also the role of the Council of Governors in resolving some challenges that we've seen between executives and the assemblies, but also between a governor and their deputy. Case in point, Wajir County, that has, is it 2 governors? Because one says that was impeached illegally. And there's already one, another, the running mate or the deputy governor then has already taken over the reins of power. What's the role of COG? Those 2 questions.
Sam, before I touch on those 2 questions, I just want to touch on 3 issues. One, about the on-source revenue issue. And I think largely I want to agree with Olekina that, with Senator Olekina, that I think all county governments, we need to do a bit more when it comes to on-source revenue. I think the issue of the spatial plan, very key for us. And I think in Bungoma here, we have a spatial plan. The issue of the evaluation role, the way Olekina has mentioned, very, very important. And just to say that as counties, I think there's a lot of work that we need to do in terms of just improving our on-source revenue. For example, Sam, for the last 9 months, for the financial year 2020-2021, I think the average collection is about 50% of the target. Of course, COVID has played an important role, but I think it is an issue that we must deal with. And I want to agree entirely on that issue with Olekina, the senator, that there's a lot of work. I think what we are doing at the moment, having been the chair of Finance Committee of the Council of Governors, the issue that we're also trying to do is to harmonize the revenue collection system. And I think we're in discussions with the Treasury, the National Treasury, to see how can we have one revenue collection system across the 47 counties. Secondly, Sam, just to touch on what Maore said about accountability of resources, I can tell you without any fear of contradiction, Sam, that a shilling spent at the counties is more accountable than a shilling spent at the national level. And the reason is that there are more eyes, there are more people who look at that one shilling that is being spent at a county level. What is being at a national level, Sam, I can tell you, many people don't follow it. Since devolution came, people don't follow it. But there's a lot of accountability. There's a lot of people following. There's a lot of people looking and saying, how did this governor spend this money? Because of that, we see a lot of people talking about corruption at the county level. But at a national level, when things are being spent, like what happened even in this Kamsa thing, huge amounts of money that was misappropriated, but the discussion just fizzles out. If that had happened in the counties, it would be a very different discussion. So in terms of accountability, a shilling spent at a national level and a shilling spent at the county level, a shilling spent at the county level is more accountable because there are more people looking at it, more eyes looking at it than a shilling spent at the national level. Thirdly, I think the issue of implementation, yes, there are issues, and I just want to correct the chair of the County Assemblies Forum to say, look, we have issues about implementation. The delay of remittances is a fundamental issue. Like last financial year, 2020-2021 financial year, Sam, I think we received 2 months of the national equitable share in July. So that then becomes a problem for us to spend that money, because then, you can't spend it. You will spend it after the financial year has come to an end. Coming to the issues that you have raised for me, one is The issues about the counters, the governors and deputy governors, yes, we have a problem. And I think Olekina is here. I think it will be very, very important that we come up with proper legislation that defines the role of a deputy governor in a county government, so that it is not at the whim of the governor, so that we know very clearly that when you have a deputy governor, his role is this, and outlined very clearly in the constitution. A number of governors have issues with their deputy governors, but also a number of governors work very well with their deputies. Like myself in Bungoma here, I work very well with my deputy governor. What is happening in Wajir is very unfortunate, and it cannot be resolved through courts, because it's important that that issue resolved, because at the moment, yes, there seem to be like two governors in the office, and I think it's important that the courts come out very clearly and tell us who is supposed to be sitting.
But is there any role for the Council of Governors to mediate some of these challenges?
Yes, Sam. I think we did have a discussion. We called, I remember I was part of that mediation team. We called the governor and his deputy. We had a meeting with them as the Council of Governors, but it was very difficult for them to come to an agreement. And I think as a Council of Governors, we have played our role in terms of mediation. So I think where we have reached is the courts to come in and relay tell us clearly who is supposed to be in the office in Wajir.
Okay, very interesting. And of course, you also know that in Nyeri, there's a situation of a deputy governor in the name of Caroline Karugu, who says that has not been paid, is it for the past 2 or so years? And she's already in court challenging that the governor, Mutahi Kahiga, is compelled to ensure that she is paid. Of course, the conflict between the two continues to affect the delivery of services at a time that that deputy governor has not been able to execute her duties from her office. Let's take a look at some of the feedback that has been coming to us. Jacob Abere, you're saying that these packages are going to create dynasty payments. Example, one may go for MCA, then governor, then senator, then National Assembly, and lastly presidency. An example, say all years would be 40 years. That woman or man shall dry the coffers of retirement. I think there's a rider there that once you assume another office, you get the benefit minus your current salary at that time. Sam Wamalo, you're saying that I support Senator Ledama, and at this moment, with the economic status in Kenya, that bill is a no. Basically, elective position term is more of a 5-year contract. So how do you get pension benefits for a contract? So why can't the road contractor get the pension? Well, they're asking why can't road contractors get pensions? Just hold on. Next one. IG Natem, the bill could be good, but it is necessary. But is it necessary at this point? Are the authors too insensitive? Do they really understand what Kenyans are going through? What are our priorities as a country? Nyaminde, you're saying, I agree with the Senator Olekina. Governors are just a hungry lot. The Speaker has already confessed to massive corruption at the county. Then they still want all that money. They should be given a one-off token of appreciation and go home. MC Sikusi, nobody asked them to run for the office as governor. The citizens are not responsible for their lifetime. They went to the office to serve the people, not selfish desires. Jenga Wakongo, if the counties are going to meet these gratuities, then our development in counties will definitely be a thing of the past. If at this point in time you're struggling to see what counties are achieving in matters development, what of when they interfere with the meager funds. Governor Wycliffe Wangamati, Honorable Mawoko Maore, Senator Olekina, and Ndegwa Wahome, thank you so much for your time.
Just one quick thing.
In 10 seconds.
In 10 seconds. I think the governor stated clearly, and he was able to explain that in this country we've been violating Article 219. So I think the only solution to that, because counties will continue receiving their money late, is for us to be able to change our accounting system. Because currently, all county governments operate on a cash basis of accounting.
Okay.
We need to be able to change that into the accrual system, such that even if the governors receive their money in September, that money will still be applied to the expenses which were incurred. Because currently, with the cash accounting system, the money is applied based on when the cash is received. So I think to be able to solve that, that is a discussion that we may need to have with the National Assembly in terms of the PFM Act, with the Auditor General, the Control of Budget, Treasury, so that we can be able to help devolution.
All right, and Speaker, your closing remark, quickly.
Senator Orekina here and Mheshimiwa Maoka, is that to note that as we stand here today, in this age of devolution, that the constitution of this country as applies to Nyandarua is suspended. There is the rule of law in Nyandarua is at a standstill, and court orders in Nyandarua are mere pieces of paper.
Is the Senate aware? Have you informed the Senate?
Yes, he knows.
I'm actually getting to know it now.
So, Mheshimiwa Maore,
all right,
from where he sits, Mheshimiwa Redama, I know he's a proactive and a progressive leader in this country. Kaidre, even if it is an ad hoc committee, let it come to Nyandarua.
Have you informed the Senator of Nyandarua?
Yes, he knows about it.
Okay, all right.
That's
how we leave the conversation. It appears that a serious situation is going on in Nyandarua County. We strive to get to the depth of this matter. Thank you all for making time for us. My name is Sam Gituku. Up next is Sporty Monday with Elise Raburu here with the crew. Bye for now.